You're listening to the Racking Round Table podcast, episode number 60. I'm your host. 60. Wait. Even before I start 60. That's crazy. I'm your host, David Oria. This is my co-host,
Chris Sagana, and our guest today was Dan Angkiangco. Man, Dan is, I want to call him both a coach, a mentor. He's at a stage. I mean, this guy has a background. First, he started off mainly in sports medicine and fitness and nutrition. But man, he's evolved so much just from telling our story and how he's continuing to grow and what his plans are, man. I mean, what do you think, David?
Dude, he talked about just like physical, mental, spiritual alignment and literally applied that to exercise science
I
and
know.
just got me, and I'm sure you, to think so much about that, think so differently. Like that man's something else.
Yeah, for sure, man. And we're definitely excited for you guys to hear this episode.
All right. No, super excited to have this conversation. Honestly, this is the topic that we'll talk about today. I think is very like timely, and also just like it's just so relevant now, and I'm just happy that you're here on the platform, just to be able to just share not only like your experience but also just like your journey through. We kind of talked a little bit offline, so, and I don't want to spoil anything, but just to kind of set the table for our listeners, and for everyone that's just that might be viewing this podcast also, like just give us like a quick intro, like just about who you are, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll kind of get into the journey itself, but just set the table for us.
All right. Well, my name is Dan Angkiangco, and I'm over here in San Diego, California. I am technically, professionally, a strength and conditioning coach, a health and wellness coach as well. In 2020 received my master's in integrative wellness. So I did this big shift, and went on more to just connecting and healing the inner body, and just connecting. And I've always been about self-mastery. So even though in the strength realm, all about human performance, getting bigger, faster, stronger, I've always felt connected to the root of my roots, which is martial arts and the self-cultivation, self-actualization. And next, I think it was in college when something hit me when I was taking an Eastern philosophy class, where I started to really connect and create my own philosophy and approach to strength and conditioning. And so that was like the start of things. And then from there, when I know we're probably going to touch this more, but once I went to have my own practice, my own strength and conditioning facility or studio, I started implementing that more, but in my own health and my own healing practice as well for myself. I started noticing more connections, and then I started to shift to this bigger picture, this integrative type of practice that, went with mind, body, and soul, to just that intention was really to master thyself. And so I was doing that for a lot of my clients and just implementing that as well. So that's kind of like setting the tone, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier before we started recording, was that, I mean, we kind of see I know you still work in progress, but kind of the end product here, right? Where before even like fitness and all this other stuff, you were thinking about a different career. Is that right?
Yes. So before hitting, when I found, I guess I went through this self-finding process. So off the back from high school, went straight to a vocational school, the Art Institute. And I was going through, I chose to do game art and design, just because at that moment I was playing a lot of WoW. I do have an art side, and I was just like, okay, I do have some weaknesses in my drawing and things like that. But I told myself I could probably learn it. This is a place, to train that. And so, it was just more of this whim, because it's a vocational school. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get out of here in like 3 years instead of going to this 4-year college. All these blocks were just like probably feeding me just something quick and fast. And I made that decision just to jump it without really thinking thoroughly, what is it that I want? So it was all this other pressure outside too, whether it was peer pressure of like, oh, everyone's doing something cool, everyone found their passion, and you don't want to be left behind, along with the family cultural conditioning, right? Doing something also fighting that stability, that safety net. I have a military dad, so of course it was like, well, if you don't go to college, you go to the military, so that he knows that I'm safe. That whole survival thing. So during all that time, I was like, I'm just gonna jump on this, and I was halfway in, year and a half, and it just hit me. I went to like 250 pounds for a guy who's like 5'6", 5'7". It and my body type, I was like almost like wearing double X large shirts, so just to give you kind of like a visualization. And I was just really unhappy. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, but I almost lost her, and she was the one who kind of had this talk, and it hit me,
That's awesome.
and reminded me of my potential, who she was in love with, but she was losing that love, that if I was in this track. And honestly, I think I was using video games to also escape reality and responsibility. So from that, I kind of had to sit there and face everything myself, face that pressure, because knowing that I had to face my dad to tell him how I felt, because he also taught me, like, you don't quit, but to just, when in your heart it's not what you're meant to do. And so I did that. I did the self-reflection. I asked myself a lot of these questions, and I call it the self-finding process nowadays, when I systemized everything. But it was a compilation of remembering who I was when I was 6, what was natural, what moved me, which was like sport. And ever since I was like 6, my first love was basketball. And each sport, because my dad was gone, I would actually learn by watching. So at that time, it was MJ. But I wasn't just watching MJ and like, mimicking his tongue. I would go to Blockbuster, if you guys remember Blockbuster. And there's those highlights, right? In the season. And I remember just being right by the VCR, rewinding and looking at footwork. So that breakdown was always innate in me. And then I remembered that. It was just weird. So I took note of that. And then another sign for me was, I was on YouTube and I ran into Todd Durkin's one of his YouTubes. And Todd Durkin's over here in San Diego, Fitness Quest 10. I pay a lot of respect to him. I also did a mentorship program with him.
Nice.
But it was him and LT and LaDainian Tomlinson at the time. And the reason why I went into that video was also because it was when Drew Brees, as a Charger, got injured his last season. He's like, all right, Phillip Rivers is in now. And it's so his career. And next, he gets rehab and wins a Super Bowl ring. Right. And I was like, what is this guy doing? And that's where I just noticed that Todd Durkin, it was more than just training. He was affecting these men's life off the field. And that's when I was like, I wanted to do that. So that's what started that planted the seed. So I saw it was a mix of like my childhood reflection, what I was naturally good at, what I love to do, which is sport, and then what I also wanted to do and what I saw other men or other professionals were doing to help others. And I was like, I think this is where it was. Because when I reflected on game art and design and the lifestyle that it was going to bring up with deadlines and you don't get paid until that project is finished. So there's going to be a lot of, whatchamacallit, like overnight stuff that you had to do. And for me, I was noticing my health was already declining. And I was like, so I scrapped it. I faced my fears of facing my dad, dropped out. And then, of course, he was like, what's your plan B? And I already had everything. I was like, okay, I'm going to go start off with community college. And of course, because it's vocational, nothing transferred. So it's like starting from beginning. So of course, I felt like, okay, I lost time. I'm behind. I'm like a super senior now, becoming a freshman kind of thing in college. But that was basically the start of it. And then finally transferred to SDSU and got my bachelor's in fitness, nutrition, and health. And while doing that, I was hitting two birds with one stone, getting hired at the Y, at a location down south. And so it was cool to be a pioneering thing. So it was giving back to my community where I grew up. So I was one of the first employees there to kind of help build up the health and wellness programs over there. And yeah, so I was like, while going to school, I was applying it, going to school and applying it.
Yeah.
So it started off with like the basic, like weight room instructor / wellness coach there, and then moved up as I was, gaining more knowledge and skill, and of course applying it to myself. Then went on to getting a personal training certificate, along with becoming a boot camp instructor there. I just hit everything, boot camp, and I became a Group X, and even did like what is that? It's like that tempo. Body pump. I was a body pump instructor.
Nice.
I had that cert.
Let's go.
That's fun,
bro.
Yeah. So that was that, and then of course personal training.
Nice.
I'm gonna be proud of myself with that boot camp thing, because since I that was from scratch, I built that program. That program was actually creating a lot of revenue at the time. And there was times where it had so I had to create 2 classes, and then it still had a wait list. So I took that as also a sign, like, hey, maybe I should do this on my own, like create my own place. And so that was like planting of the seed there.
Nice.
So yeah, and then from there the rest was history. Kind of like I just knew that I kind of grew out of the why, because I was starting to implement a lot of the philosophy stuff, and it was like, okay, Dan, like you're not doing it with the wise way. Don't do it Dan's way. Do it the wise way. And I was like, I'm generating for you. I'm just I'm just seeing something different here.
Yeah.
And people feel it. When you're programming with a different intention, they feel it. So they already know that our clients was like, this is different. And so when they're trying to kind of confine me, I was just like, and got my big break, and had 2 gentlemen and who approached me and was like, hey Dan, we're seeing a lot of I guess influence, whether it's like another trainer somewhere else, and they're like, hey, this person, she trained under Dan, how come she's at this place training? It's like, oh well, why don't we go to the source, help this guy out and see. So they invested in my vision, and we tried it out and got us a little small storage space nearby, and that's where I was at for like the last 5 years.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, so that was a big growth, another growth, especially in the business side of things.
Yeah.
And then just this recently, because I just felt that all this change was happening, I decided to vacate just this year. And then so we'll see. So I'm not going to say I closed down I call it the Ludus, because Ludus Enkrateia, that was my practice. That was what our business was called, which means the school of self-mastery. But yeah, it's not closed. It's just indefinitely gonna finding a place to relocate, because it's evolving. So
yeah. That's amazing, man. That's I love that. That's
an awesome story.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. And just like to touch on a couple of things that like resonated with me was just like, yeah, you feel like this, you felt constrained, you felt a need to just continue to grow. And sometimes your current circumstances don't, as much as they're great, right? As much as your current circumstances are, what you need at the moment, sometimes like it doesn't offer you like a platform to grow into like what your vision is, what you said, your vision. And so like you created that vision, and you had people like in your corner, which is awesome. I think that's something that people always gotta just look for, if that's what you're looking for, and but I wanted to just to kind of reel things a little bit back, just because at the beginning of your journey, you talked a little bit about like facing your fear about you called it, I think, jumping ship, but I mean just transitioning ships, that's all. It's
right.
but like there is fear there, man, and there's fear, and there's a lot of things, anxiety. There's I think you're talking about talking with your dad, that causes a lot of different like fluctuations in emotions. How did you, what's interesting is because you were transitioning into a place of like physical wellness, right? You've self-reflected, and it was just, you need to be in a place of better physical wellness, but also like creating, what it created was kind of this mental dissonance almost, right? With the things that you were going through. How did you balance that? How did you even get through that?
Man, that's a great question. I'm trying to even remember that time. Just
maybe you've like stricken that from your memory.
No, because it's like I want to approach this question exactly what you're asking, which is back then, because I could, with all the wisdom now, I could answer that question, but I don't think it's not the same as back then, because because right, if our listeners are listening and they're at that age where I was, which was like 18, 19, wait, no, I was like 20 now. Yeah, I was like 20, because going in there, I think it how I balanced that was allowing myself to be honest. I honestly looked at the situation, because right, when we go back to it, it was my girlfriend at the time who almost kind of, it does slap you in the face in the ego, right, to tell you like, hey, there's something up, you're not living to your potential that I see. I love you, I'm not really in love with you anymore. There's a lot of things where I could have just snapped back and not see what she's trying to say, right? So when I was already feeling like what she said was, it didn't start that feeling, I was already feeling that. So when I was already feeling I guess you say, not only the fear, but that things were not right for me in this situation. And then boom, another source kind of reinforces that. Some people listen, some people don't. And I would say, listen. So it's before anything, before, you feel that ego or your emotions start to want to retaliate, just hold on. Just give yourself a minute to really process what the signs are saying, whether it's within the voice within yourself, because I could tell you that there were two distinct voices in me. The big brain, the big head, who's saying, well, your dad told you this, there's no quit in you. But there's that little voice in the heart. I feel that the heart and the spirit are truly connected there. And it's not the heart as in desire, because that's ego still. But it was the heart, this little voice that was gentle, and it said, like, it was guiding me. It was, you don't belong here. But it does feel fearful, like what you said, because your big brain is putting all that fear, saying all that. So when you tell me how was I balancing that, it went to the point where I was really getting pulled, where I had to surrender somewhere. So it was either to surrender to that big brain that's safe, but I'm not happy, or to the unknown, the possibility, and I'm happy, but it's you're being brave, you're being courageous, and you're facing those fears. So that it all comes down to that. And for our listeners, or for anyone who's going through this, I know I can't tell you what to do, but as for me, what I did is I went with courage. And once I decided to do that and take action, then once you make that decision, then that's where the fear kind of goes away, or it's like, okay, I did it, and I'm faced. I said, Dad, I need to talk to you, and it's being also male and talking to your dad, to show those emotions too, because you grew up and why are you crying? He always, I remember, it's like, why are you crying? You don't need to cry. Don't be emotional. But it was the first time where he allowed me to, because he knew it was just like, because he knew I was trying to please him, but I was just telling, I just can't. I'm not. And I'm owning up to my decision, because I'm the one who decided to go to this school. And I remind you, it's a vocational school, so it's like we're paying for it, and we waste. I don't want to say wasted, but we did spend money, and it's money we can't get back, and that also created debt at the time, and that was during like even the recession of 2008, right? So all these things, all these factors, but just to to allow myself to kind of do that. And then from then on, it wasn't even that. Like even as an entrepreneur, like I was the first, like one of the first. Like no one's everyone has a, getting a 9-to-5 job, but here I am, like boom, and it just led up to that. So facing these fears it started off with just being honest and just complete listening to everything around you. It wasn't just, I have to listen to what my girlfriend was saying, but just really get whatever information and apply it to yourself and see what is talking to you, and sometimes, spiritually, that's like, what do you want to call it? The force, the universe. But of course, for me and my faith, it was God. God will talk to you in ways in which you only know and how you learn. And I learned by connection. So it was like, okay, I took this piece along with things. So that's how I learn, and God knows that. And so he was using those pieces, showing validity in all these other voices and showing me that. So I think this was like a 2-week, 3-week process of like, I feel like I need to drop out of school, change. It started a little bit, but the more I started to listen, the more that got stronger, and the more science started to come in to validate it. And then from then on, it was to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. Like really, I would go to class. It's almost like depression. You're tired. You know why you're doing it. You didn't want to do the homework. Yeah. And so
nice.
I hope that
oh yeah, definitely
answered that question. So
I think a lot of common themes you run into is like being true to yourself. You keep saying like just being honest, right? So each stage that you told us about, I think you're just being true to yourself, right? When you decided to change your career path, when you were working at the Y, you noticed that you're kind of being put in a box, but you had to be true to yourself, pursue your own gym so that you had more control over it, right? Even the decisions you're making now. But I also see honesty in the partner you chose, because in certain relationships, if your partner can't be honest with you, they might just leave, not put up with it, right? But she was willing to be honest with you and tell you that I see a potential in you. That's where you know it's love, because it's not just because I'm tired of what you're doing, you make me unhappy. It's that I see so much for you and for us that I know there's more for you. You know what I mean? That's like that's real. That is so real, man.
So that's why I'm so happy she's my friend. No, and I'll tell you that, like it is true, and she's awesome. I mean, she was the one who she pinpointed I was depressed like two months ago in month of June. And she's like, you're depressed. And she's like, I don't know, you're sulking and thinking, but you need to get out of it. I was just like, oh shoot, you're right. Because during that transition, during this relocation and things started to, we paid off our investors. So that was hard to do. And now I'm relocating and doing all these things alone. And I started like, oh shoot, income, where's the income coming in? And all these other factors started to get me down. And once again, that honesty, and having a partner that just calls things out. She was the one who saved me again, just kind of like, okay. And once again, there was fear too in that aspect. And it all started off that when she said something, listen, and being honest, an honest reflection of yourself. And I had to redo that again. So
for sure. I want to also talk about like preparation, because I feel like when you talk to your dad and was getting ready to tell him that you want to make a change, you did mention to him when he asked you, so what are you going to do? Not that you're going to stop going to this school. What you had a plan, like, well, I'm going to go back to community college. I think I want to do this. And I think that tells a lot about your, your character and just your thought process too, right? Like as far as the gym, you say it's vacant right now, but it's like, okay, well, now I'm going through steps in preparation of what my next move is. So what's your advice on those two, like, want to make a change, but I mean, how do they get into that preparation mindset?
Well, I think because for me, every preparation is different, right? Based on the situation. So things with my dad, he was the one who actually taught me to be prepared. So with him, I knew I needed to show that I was thinking. Like, okay, I'm not just like gonna drop out and do nothing. I knew that about him. Like, okay, well, what's your plan? He always grew up with that. So I was prepared for that. So I prepared for him. It's almost like Batman, like
Yes.
I was a
Sorry.
Batman fan. Yeah. so I had
Batman prep
it's like
time.
so prep time is like you give me prep time. I have a contingency plan based on that. And my topic was, okay, well, what's my contingency plan for my dad? And my dad to not only convince him, but to show him that I'm confident enough in this and that, and to convince him that yes, I made a mistake. I didn't think about, fully going to this art school, but I did think about this process. And this is what I want to do, because I was going through that. I was already going through my own self-finding process of what I wanted to do things. So I just shared that. So that was kind of easy prep. Now, my preparation in vacating this spot was totally different, because in a sense of place where I was at before, where I was like, okay, I know what I could control and I'm showing all of this. I was in a phase of feeling of energetic feel of manifestation. Different. I was applying some new different tools, and one where it was more of, you could say, not only faith-based, but of law of attraction and elevating my vibration, going with my gut feeling. And at that same time, going with this gut feeling and relinquishing some of your control, I kind of just went on with like, the trust is in that universe, that if there's a sign, I'll follow through with that. So I was being very open to possibilities, one in which I was not prepared for. And I honestly was like, when everything went down on June, because I had to relocate all my equipment, put it in storage, and it's like, okay, well, here's going to be the bill monthly. And I'm just like, wait, how come it seemed like I didn't think this through. I wasn't as prepared, because I was also using, so you could say why was that, but I think it was just where I was at, and I really wanted to apply this other side of me that I've grown into. So I think, to answer that question, is you could prepare what you could control, but you just have to be prepared, not for anything that's open. I guess saying like anything that, like, for me, I'm allowing myself to be more open to possibility. That's why. And so I can't tell you how to prepare for that, because if you continue to prepare so hard trying to control, then you're never going to be open to possibility. It's going to be more for your ego. So I was doing a lot of ego work, separating myself from this thing called ego that creates separateness, right? This thing that it's like, no, you need to control, you need to feel safe, you need to fulfill all your roles and all these things. But I don't want to say in like a real aspect of like what I'm trying to go for, which is my higher self, my greatest potential, there's this other spiritual side of understanding how the underlining energy, frequency, vibration, and all these things are really working. So to relinquish yourself from your own ego to being open, there's only so much that you could prepare for, but you also have to prepare for anything, for possibility. I don't know if that answers that question, but that's the mindset that is so tricky, because I think as human beings, we want to have that control. We want to make sure that we are safe. We're running on our survival chakras or emotion, but it's so hard for us to be running on the higher levels of energy that we have. So it's also just depending on what you want in life, because that I have a different goal, right? And I think everyone wants success, but every definition is different, right? Of success. Your success might be different from mine, because one might be driving for a Ferrari, but mine is fulfillment and achieving one's higher self. I want to know who that Dan is.
So no, that's interesting that you asked that
right?
question. Like, I want to know who that Dan is. And what popped into my head when you said that was just like kind of what we were talking about offline a little bit, just having or aligning your like, and I come at this question because you are in this like, physical wellness type of
Yeah.
space, right? You
Yeah.
come from that background. And so that's kind of the way that I'm approaching this question. And you say that you want to be like that version of Dan. And like, what is the alignment of the physical wellness of that version of you and the
Yeah.
mental wellness of that version of you? How do
Mm.
those things play off of each other? Especially when you're trying to accomplish your specific goals.
Awesome. Great question. And thank you for bringing me for full circle
I
because
got you. I got you.
no,
That's mine
That
and
was
Chris's
good.
job, bro.
that's great. So the cool thing was that's just basically like the beginning of my like this
Yeah.
when I did switch in strength and conditioning. It started with physical, and then I started to connect more into different aspects because like before I was always in the basics. Like, okay, we're gonna build muscle. Great, we're gonna build more
Yeah.
power. Oh, okay, cool. So this is how we manipulate in our training. And once again, I was like, this is it though. This is like when we're surrounded, right? And let's say you go a 24-hour gym, and I don't want to offend anyone, but when you are looking and observing, right, we see all the egos flare. They have great bodies, but yet they're doing everything for attention. They have great physical, they look physically healthy, but deep down inside, they could still be a douchebag. They're treating people, they have this elitist mindset. And why are they treating people like that? So I started to kind of connect outward.
Yeah.
So if I knew, okay, I'm a trainer at the time, so I have a profound effect on someone's health. Why does it just have to be on manipulating the shell? How can I connect? Because back then when I when we talk about concept of self-mastery, when I go back to martial arts, it was a lifestyle that the hard training, there's soft training, there's yin and yang, but everything was to cultivate oneself. So I was like, man, we kind of to stop deriving from that, like even as the health and wellness industry. And so I started to make those connections within myself. And so one of my early principles when, when you go in, when you try to hire me as a personal trainer, I would tell them like one of my principles is I'm going to make sure that how you perform is how you will look. I always did that. It's like, to me, it's what you're doing will always translate. To me, it was like your body will adapt. You will, yes, those are side dishes to me. You're gonna get endurance and stamina. Yes, you're gonna look great. Yes, you're gonna lose body fat. Yes, you're gonna gain muscle. But to me, that's not that like when because they always do that. They were like, yeah, I'm coming to you to lose weight, and we want to think. But the more they're always focused on that, then the more they became impatient. And I was like, didn't you see your gains? And you're like, what gains? I'm like, last time you couldn't even plank for 30 seconds, and now you're planking over 90. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, your biomechanics when you're running, it looks more natural now. Instead, I trust there was like people who would even just run weird. But because of the training, we think, and yeah, they may not have lost that or not, they have been losing that fat but gaining muscle. So in the scale, they weren't losing weight, but just because they didn't lose their weight, they were just like, oh, it's not working. I was like, whoa. And so to show that and to connect that mind and body, when I was telling them, look how you're performing, but also how does that translate to you? How do you feel in your body? When you're running now, do you feel more connected? And so that was the start of that. And so with this whole, when I ask myself, I want to achieve who that higher self is, that higher self already exists in the quantum realms. That's what they say, right? It's just, it has to be unveiled in you. You're getting in your own way, right? And with that higher self doesn't only have a way of thought, it has a way of philosophy, but damn right, it has a physical health. They're all connected, because if you're thinking a certain way and you're feeling a way, that's already broadcasting, right? If you're thinking and feeling loop, that creates vibration. But if you're vibrating in a certain way, you wouldn't be taking behaviors on. that would interject that. That's why everything starts with how you think and feel. So if you're always negative and you're feeling negative, that feeling of negativity is going to reinforce the thought. So you're going to go like, see, yeah, that's why it is true. It's okay to think this way, this negative feeling, because I feel it and it's reinforcing that. So what are you going to do? You're going to be more susceptible just to doing anything that feeds the ego. And of course, that might be led to unhealthy habits. No, I'm lazy. I don't want to run. Like, I can't deal with that pain, but you're really unhappy, right? So when I started to notice, okay, we got these three divisions, way of thought, they all have to be aligned. I think it was Confucius or Lao Tzu who said, true peace is when what you think and what you feel and what you do is all aligned. It's like it's all one, I believe how I took that was, okay, we have that Venn diagram, right, of body, mind, and spirit. And then they only allow three small pieces to connect. I think of it as this: the more I work on this, the more they actually just become one circle.
Nice. Yeah.
So that Venn diagram starts to think. So that's where I started to do that. And so I started to play with my exercise programming. And instead of, okay, I know the basics. I know that this many reps at this load, we could gain hypertrophy or whatnot. That went advanced to hitting bioenergetic systems, right? So basically phosphagen system or anaerobic, right, to glycolysis, or is it going to be oxidative, right? The reasons why I'm bringing up the systems is because when we train with systems, it's a whole body, it's a physiological response. The whole body is responding to the cellular level of how you are creating ATP, right? But when I thought of this, I was like, wait, but if the body and mind are truly connected, in order to do, let's just say the phosphagen system, which is an all-out sprint, which is 100% at 100 meters. When we do that, in order to perform, there has to be a certain way of thought, right? So if you're doing a one rep max, has a certain amount of power in your brain for your body to say, okay, I'm going to listen, to actually do it. So when I said, okay, we're training systems here and we're doing 80%, how does 80%, how does that really affect my mind? What is my thought process, right? I started to kind of notice, wait a minute. In order to do this, and for the mind to tell the body, it has to go with thought and feelings. So if you notice, if you even do a near max, so example is, I remember doing a 90% deadlift. It was like my birthday workout. I did a 90% for 6 rounds, 1 rep. So I picked it up, and just to give a value, it's nothing to be, not trying to flex, because there's people doing so much more. At that time, my max was 425. So 90% of that, what was that? Was it 405? Am I doing my math right? Or
it's a lot.
High 3.
It's a lot.
Right? So we do the one. We of course we do our whole prep. I do my whole prep. So we're primed. I do my one. Okay, cool. It feels easy. I did all the checks. My breathing was right. Boom, everything's taken. 2, great, did it. By 3, 4, and 5, while I was resting, I listened to my mind and what it was saying. And it was saying, oh, you're getting tired. You can't do the same. And that's where I started noticing, wait a minute. This program isn't just about lifting my near 1 rep max. I'm now conditioning my mind to do it repeatedly for 6 rounds. And I noticed that the first 2, that voice wasn't there. But now there's a voice feeding me doubt, feeding me, oh no, your back's hurting, it's gonna pull. What? We just did it twice. We're resting about 4 to 5 minutes. We're safe, right? But I started noticing, well, hey, I am getting tired. So guess what? More mind-body connection. Besides, when the body was breaking down, I had to recruit more of my mind. All the checks, boom, back, scaps are retracted, core tight, bring all the chi to my stomach, or they say breath, but now I'm saying chi because it's different, breath and chi, right? We tighten everything, squeeze the glutes, go up. Oh, hey, haha voice, I self-doubt, get away more, right? But now you're starting to see that 5 and 6 and you're tired. And that's where it kind of clicked on me. So basically that led me to going, I'm not going to program for gains. I'm going to program for psychological emotional responses. So it changed all of that.
Okay.
So that's when I started to kind of go boom. So what I started to do now is start to explore that, playing with systems. So that was a phosphagen system, right? Something high rep, high load, 1 rep, right? If we wanted to go to glycolysis, which is your muscle building or muscular endurance, you're playing from anywhere from 8 to 15, right? With effective load. Lighter than that 1 rep or that 90%. We're playing with what? Anywhere from 45 to 65, even 70%. Right? That's sometimes the 70, 75 range is more on phosphagen system, right? But I started playing with that. So I started going, okay, what if I go with one system to another, right? Let's do, or the same system, but expressed differently, because an assault bike for 10-second all out sprint, then going to a near maximal deadlift, even though it's both phosphagen system, they take 2 different approaches in the mind and emotionally. So they take different emotions. And I started labeling what emotions come out. Besides the doubt, there was frustration, there's pressure and how you respond to pressure, right? So there's this I call it expressions now. My physical expression was creating pressure. So let's just say you do a very high effort assault bike hit for 15 seconds, but I'm telling you to get me 10 calories by that time, right? That's a high demand. That takes a certain way of breathing. It takes you out differently. And while you're, I'm like, here's 2 kettlebells, hold it, rack it, boom. That was a different pressure, right? And that creates a different mental stress. And that's where the beauty of coaching. I'm not saying, come on. I'm going, internalize. What's your thought process? Put it down. What's your thought process? Doubt. It's almost like I'm already reading their mind, because that's human nature. And I tell them who you want to be. While you're holding it, who do you want to be? It's the opposite of the person who wants to drop it, right? And of course they tell me who they strive to be, things. I love this one girl.
That's awesome.
That's
cool. I love this.
Cool.
Yeah. So I love this one girl who she identifies as Katara, right? A very for those who don't know, Katara is, right, oh my gosh, the last airbender, right? Avatar, the last airbender. Okay. She's one of the female leads. She is a water bender, and she's one of those first, like, heroines. They're like, a lot of girls look up to this girl. And I was like, dude, that's tight. So here we go, we're working. And I was like, what would Katara do? Right? Hey, water bend this, right? What's water bending? It's almost like Tai Chi. Absorb, expel out. Come on, breathe, breathe in that air, bend it, exhale slowly, calm, while she's in pressure. And next, that starts to have a different effect. And I always tell people, when different professionals, when you're creating, physical programs, or even if it's just a workout or a long-term program, your intention will be felt no matter what. Like, people will know if your intention was to work the booty. Of course, you're doing everything. But if it's just for the sake of working out the booty and muscle, that's how they're going to receive it. I played with this. I went with the intention, and I created, right? My intention was pressure. I just labeled it pressure on the whiteboard. And I was like, life's going to give you pressure. What are you going to do with it? Right? How are you going to deal with it? That was the theme of just that day. And I didn't coach I didn't give a spiel. I didn't give, a coaching speech. I said, this is what we're going to do today. Yes, it's about pressure. So there's a lot of things about pressure, but that's it. And I wanted to just observe, what will they experience? And guess what? Because I put my intention already, how it was created through transferring all that energy from a marker to a whiteboard and them reading it, you're damn straight that intention was already felt without even saying a word. And that's where the coaching started to go into, because I was already putting a different energy in creating this. So that's where I figured this out, and why now's how everything started to connect. And so back to going to answering that question even more, when with the higher self is training a certain way, because it knows that it training that certain way is going to train this certain mindset for you to think and feel at a higher vibration, and knowing and separating one's ego and what you could control and not control. It has the understanding of the many things that are happening around you for you to still thrive and choose right for you. But it's everything.
Yeah,
So
dude, totally. I get
yeah,
that. I get you.
yeah.
That's crazy. I was like entering this conversation of like, so how would we get back in shape? How do we get fit? And I'm like, dude, it's so much deeper than that,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Well, yeah,
That's
and
I get that.
yeah, and well, of course, going back to the basics. If one was just wanting to get weight loss, and get back in shape, and I especially with the whole pandemic thing, the 2020 stuff.
yeah.
I know it's hard, but if we notice how we got out of our funk, right? We're in this situation because of how this place affected us. Did it affect us physically? For some of us, yes, of course. But for most of us, it was because we had to stay at home. We had to sit more. We didn't, we couldn't make our living space a workout space. Like, so I know some people who just can't work out at home.
Yeah.
So, but if we notice, we allowed ourselves, our own wants, our things to stop from adapting. So there's that mental block because it's my workout space. Ew, I don't work out where I sleep, or I don't work out where I live. Like, well, what else? If how then the question would be, well, how much is your physical health important to you? I always like to ask this as well, is you have to decide how connected is your why to your fitness. And that why could be a career why, to the why of
That's a
how you
good
live
one.
your life, your why to how you serve your God, your why to approach to life. And if it isn't, then you're just going to allow the ego or let circumstances control that. So it always starts with just that mindset. And once again, being honest, like, well, am I just making excuses, or can I make it work? Right. So if for weight losses, yeah, weight loss for me, if you want to lose weight, I approach everything as healing. You're going to heal from something. And so if you really want to heal something, well, there's a great quote where it says, if you want to heal from your sickness, then you have to stop doing the behaviors that led you to your sickness. Right. And some people always blame other things, but in the end, it's our choice whether they wanted to, you know. So I in my business, it was like, I think I was charging $100 to $125 a month. They said, hey, that's expensive. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, well, I've seen CrossFit gyms,
Yeah.
Invictus was like $225 a month.
Mhm.
But I said, how much do you spend to party on a Friday night? Oh, like 150 on drinks. So that's on drinks. And it's, yeah, you're having fun. That's your definition of fun. That's fine. But physically, is that a healthy drink? Right? You're taking away your health for $150, and that's 1 week, and you're going to do it next week too. So that's 300. What's the other week? So what is $100 a month? Like, see, so it starts off with just that.
Mindset.
So if you really want to lose weight and heal, right, or get stronger, whatever that goal is for your health, well, it starts off with maybe getting your mind right, just changing that perspective, and just do little things, right? It's okay. I'm going to take an extra walk. I'm just going to take, one less soda away. One can. I'm not going to drink a can of soda in one of my outings. Maybe I'm going to save some money on the weekend and put that into a gym I want to go to. So yeah, it starts off with those basics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome. Because I mean, I mean, oftentimes you think of when you're trying to get into shape, or even like when you're setting goals, we always talk about like, what's your why? Always know your why. When it comes to
Yeah.
fitness, it's like a lot of times it's like, well, I want to look good, right? Well, what do you want to
Mhm.
look good? Maybe if you ask yourself some more questions about why,
Exact.
you
Yeah.
might be addressing like, well, a certain insecurity that you have.
Yeah.
And even if you get to where you want to
Mm.
be physically, is that going to address the insecurity, or is your insecurity going to turn to something else besides how you look,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Man, that's
And I call that the why rabbit hole, and allow
yeah.
yourself to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot, we say that there's a lot of people afraid to do that because they
Mm-hmm.
know that deep down inside they know their answer. But I would hope that if there's a lot of people who run into this moment right here, is don't be afraid. If you really want to dive in and just heal in general, and I know we want to stick to the physical health, losing weight, eating right thing, but this also translates to trauma healing and things, because your traumas also will affect if you want to stick out, with a regimen, because some of the pain receptors are going to be the same when you're lifting weights. I've learned that. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to that, to answer your why will help you relieve some of that, to heal,
Mm-hmm.
because you're
Yeah.
finally
Good point.
looking at yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it is an insecurity, it's okay to be insecure. Admit it to yourself. You don't need to broadcast it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a bully, right? When all these bullies are thing, but you have nothing to hide, and they're using your own vulnerabilities against you. When you finally are able to accept and take on that vulnerability, you take away the power that these bullies have. And
Yes,
so to
dude.
me, you take away
That's
the
so
the,
good.
the power of your ego, because honestly it's your own
Yeah.
ego that's
Yeah.
that's afraid, that's thing. So
Mm.
once you just accept and you're aware, hey, this isn't me, this isn't this insecurity, this fear of why, and why I'm afraid of what others think. Don't be afraid of it, don't give it power. Just face it and like, well, why is it affecting me? Is it
Yeah.
true? Is it really who I am? Is it my being? In $5 you're gonna notice, wait, this is not my being. And that's why I love it. There's two people within us, right? There's in human beings, there's the human, there's being, right? The human is that physical self, right? That there's roles, there's identity, but there's also that being, that spirit. And so when I say, other people may think, and your human side is like, it hurts. But if you go into the being side, you're like, that is not true, right?
Mm.
Whatever they want to think and say, that's not really who I am. And does it really matter? No, it doesn't, and
Nice.
that gives you that bravery, that courage to just continue to explore yourself, and all of it would just allow you to finally make the decision that is truly right for you, for why you really want to do this, why you want to look a certain way. You're going to start to notice, wow, I really was trying to look a certain way to fit into a certain crowd, but now I really want to do it just because my health, I want to live to do certain things. I deal with a lot of like my clientele is about 65% women.
Mm.
And of course, it starts off because, they're afraid of aging. They need to keep up. A lot of them are mothers. But through training and understanding a lot of things, we've done a lot of mind switching. They started to connect their physical fitness, instead of looking like this because they're threatened
Mm.
for XYZ, right? With other women, trying to keep up at this very superficial, very aesthetic reasoning. I just said, right? Look at your kids. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you kept running with them? You could still pick them up. Or if you have, some of them had kids when they're very young, so they're already having grandchildren in their
Mm-hmm.
40s and 50s. And yet they're like, wow, you're actually right. I'm like, I actually have more energy than I was as a 20-year-old mother, as a 4-year-old grandmother. And there was a lot of
Yes.
like switches like that. And just by switching the why. And what
Yeah.
was funny is when we did switch their why, their mindset, their results came faster. There was less stress.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
Yeah.
was less
Yeah.
worry.
For
So
sure. For
so the
sure.
Perspective.
body started to just react the way it wanted to.
Yeah.
So instead of being there for a chore because you're just afraid of aesthetics, you're
Yeah,
there
that's so
because of a
true.
deeper being, and your cells are now responding well. And that's
No,
all
that's
physiologically
cool.
researched, when
Yeah.
you're working under stress or not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's cool, man. So I mean, just to kind of like round this out, like I feel that I just like took a lot away from everything that you were kind of saying. Just like the changes in the way that you think about things. It's like, yeah, I learned a lot, honestly. And I've
Awesome.
just like been thinking a lot. And I'm just thinking of the people that are listening to this too. Like if they, because you sparked like a curiosity in my brain.
Cool.
And if there are other people that, want to kind of learn more about like the way that you think about the way that you approach alignment physically and mentally, spiritually, and things like that. Like I would love for them to at least know where they could learn about this kind of stuff. We'll learn about like what you've been talking about. Maybe even take a deeper dive into the stuff that you've already mentioned to us, because I know that this conversation has
Yeah.
been just valuable to me,
No,
and
for
I'm sure
sure.
to Chris too. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
like for people that are listening and people that even beyond this episode want to learn more, what are some resources that they can go to, or even you yourself as a resource? How can they get connected with you in order to just like learn more about the stuff that you've just been talking about and teaching us today?
Cool. Well, I'll go into, well, first, if you want to do your own research and things, a lot of my influences came from Robert Greene's work, his books. So if you know his work, he did the 48 Laws of Power. But my favorite book of his is called Mastery. So a lot about mastering yourself was in there. I love Paulo Coelho's books. I know it's a different take of, it's totally different. He's known for Alchemist, but there's The Archer, and my favorite is Warrior of the Light. So these things are more of the philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have a background in exercise, I was NASM certified to having a CSCS. So going to school and the whole wellness aspect. But all of these things were connected, really honest, by me and my own experiences.
Right.
So if you want to know more of like my brain and how you get to know me, I do have an IG, and so you could follow me there. I think it's DE Angkiangco or Ludus Dominus Dan. You could always, reach out to Chris. He knows, he's the one who reached out to me in IG. I am creating a Facebook. So I have a Facebook, so you could still message me there. I'm with my middle name, Eric Angkiangco. My fitness, or not my strength and conditioning studio info, my business is still up there, and that's Ludus Enkrateia. I'll go ahead and give that and how to spell it.
Yeah.
But I am creating another page. So I haven't done it yet, but just be mindful and just keep this up, because if you're listening to this and like months later, it's probably going to be up. And that is DE Paths Coaching. So I'm always talking about paths there, and I'm going to be using that. So that's the thing. So I am evolving. Like I said, we're going more. I want to share this more. I was always a private person, and I always kept this like, but I want to teach. I want to do this. So I want to do more webinar. I want to reach out. I want to do more podcasts. So if you will have me back and you want to,
100%, bro. What?
we can use you guys.
That's not a
but
question.
Yeah. So if you want to be, I don't know if I'm imposing. I'm inviting myself, but of course, if there's like an in-depth, I would love to always go more in depth in this.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to do more workshops. I've done workshops in the past, so I've done one on like shadow work, on things, on concepts of self-mastery as well. So I'm making that DE coaching paths not only a place to kind of like book one-on-ones, but I'm trying to really, I don't even want to say be an influencer on there. I just really want to
share.
Be disruptive to my industry. I want to be disruptive to the industry, and I want to help other professionals think in a different way, and not just think my way. It's not about that. I hope that they take this and evolve it.
Right.
And, they have their own expertise. Some are so great in performance, but if they could be more intentional, it could just be a next step. So I want to help more professionals master their craft. That's what I kind of want to do. So I see myself as like a mentor or sage type of person and a
Yeah,
coach, of course, because there's different ways to help people. You know, if
Yeah.
they want to learn, if they want to have this student relationship thing, I'm glad to teach. I'm glad to be a sage. But if they want this more neutral and help them find themselves through themselves, I could be a coach, and it's really different
Yeah.
that and things. But besides those two ways, yes, I have a podcast with a friend of mine too as well. It's called Ikigays. It's EEKIGUYS. But yes, it does derive from Ikigai, the word in Japanese, which is IKI, right? GAI.
I looked that
So
up
yeah,
because I was trying to learn more about that. Did the whole
yeah.
concept of that too.
Right?
I'm like
Yeah.
vibing on that
Yeah, we
whole
were
thing,
deep.
dude. But I mean, like the meaning of Ikigai, I was just like, I didn't know what that
Yeah.
was, and I looked it up
Yeah.
what it means in Japanese. I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
that is all
The
what we're all
reason,
about too. You
yeah,
know,
your
like
reason of being.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like how
Yeah.
you fit,
Mm.
what you contribute to your community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going. It's not just about making money or making a living. It's about
No.
like finding your purpose, man, your passion.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I want to
And
talk about your book too. And I have the book out right now.
oh
So.
yes, yeah. You can so along with that and this big change, having my daughter, whose name is Aria. So that was like a mind-blowing thing. The reason why I wrote this book too is because she's, I don't want to say a miracle baby, but she's somewhat has a great story of her creation. I was actually infertile. So my wife and I were trying to, I know I'm all by, I didn't even tell Chris this in our synopsis, but but
Oh man,
uh
I appreciate you trusting us with that.
no,
I know,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
This is
no.
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
I was in first. So that's another story. That's how I got into also the healing. That's why this thing all
Yeah.
opened up. So there was a lot of
Wow.
things that I healed
Wow.
from, and this was when modern right medical science, and we went to a fertility doctor, and that's how we knew I was the problem or whatever. There's something wrong with me because my wife and I were trying for 6 years. I don't want to say trying, but we were just not controlling, and we're just like wondering why. So we're already accepting this part of us that okay, we might not have a child, and we're like okay, but lo and behold, I went through just not even on a whim. I just wanted to just once more better myself and heal, and this healing slash emotional and high vibrational healing, it was a different way, and it pinpointed certain things about me, what was holding back. And for 3 months we were doing the treatments, and next you know it, I think a month after that my wife tells me, hey, I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh so it
Oh
just,
man.
and then
Wow.
I just had
Wow.
to, and from there I just had to
Wow.
go, what happened? I need to know about energy, frequency, vibration. How is this working? I understood certain stuff. I understand why meditation works, but I had to connect. And so that's just a whole different ballpark. When that happened though, I was inspired to write a book for my daughter. So that's why it's called Lighting the Path, for Aria. But
Love
I
that.
That's
I
what's up.
I made it
Yeah.
into a storytelling. It is conversations between a father and his daughter, who's named Aria too. So, but yeah, I just try to make it fun and storytelling too. I love stories, so I wanted to kind of make my own. It is fictional, but yes, there's a lot of truth behind it, a lot of influence in my own life
Yeah.
within it. So you could check that out on Amazon and Kindle. I'm trying to put it out there too for like a digital copy and stuff like that. Just trying to market the book. But if you're interested on that too, it's just more about life and just helping. I only want to, even though it is a lot for daughters, and I did tailor it for like a father-daughter relationship and what the father would share. I think even sons,
Mhm.
any child
Yeah.
would benefit, and also fathers. I mean, you know, uh, just a different way of looking to the world. And it
Yeah.
deals with virtues and stuff like that. And I am doing a project. So when you said to get into more of my mind, and especially in exercise programming, it's funny that you say that. I'm currently working on an online course. So
Okay.
you guys could, I'll probably shoot that out when it's ready.
Yeah. Let us know. Let
I'm gonna
us know.
start filming. But
Okay.
yeah, so I'm gonna start filming, and I'm creating the whole workbook for it. And it's basically exercise programming for self-mastery. So it's
Nice.
basically what I was doing with everything that I was telling you with creating pressure and then tension and changing that. it's a whole detailed course. That's kind of like my passion project. It has all 15 plus years of my professional background into this. And it's not even, it's like, yes, there's part science, but a lot of it is art. So there's
Full
like
circle right there,
a lot of
dude.
things. Yeah. So
I love that, man.
and
Dude,
it's
that's
not even for
great.
professional. Like I would
Yeah.
love it for professionals, and that's of course who I'm going to market it to. But
Yeah.
for fitness enthusiasts who want to be independent and learn how to program for themselves too. So that's the thing. So I think I shared everything.
Dude, that's that.
Yeah.
First of all, that's amazing, and I honestly can't wait to just watch the growth of this, man. That's
Oh, thank you.
yeah. Dude, we're there right beside you, and dude, if we'll definitely support and promote the stuff that you got
Thank you
going on,
guys.
and dude, we're super supportive of like just everything that you've taught us and just the conversations that we were able to have, bro. Honestly,
Yeah, no worries.
I love
Yeah.
that.